and recording progress. Rebecca, I'm here to grill you about your recent book publication, essentially to inquire what it's all about, why it's so different to anything else and so much better. But before I go into any questions, what do you want to tell us about it, why you did it, and what its broad message is, I wonder?
Oh, well, I've got to show it first of all, I guess. So that's the book Rhythm, and I suppose it's often on a lot of people's bucket list, isn't it, to write a book? And I'm so pleased to be able to have actually done it. I think for me, I had this idea for the Rhythm model
Hmm.
probably about 2 years ago, and at first I wasn't sure whether to make it into a talk, a webinar, a presentation, that sort of thing, or a book. And then I came across a fantastic book coach. And I realized that actually, if I do a book first, then it means that it opens up avenues for other things. And I wanted to share some of the wisdom that I've learned over the years with other people. Personal development, self growth, whatever you want to call it, does have a life changing impact on people. And I know that's a big claim to make, and I know that can sound woo woo, but it genuinely does. It's certainly improved how I interact and experience the world over the years through my mindset and personal growth and stuff. So I wanted to share some ideas with other people. So that's why it came about, I suppose.
So, what's the significance of the word?
Oh, well done. So
Is
rhythm
is there is
stands
there any?
for it does indeed, yes, it does. So obviously that's why it's
Cue the book
as well.
flash.
So it stands for relationships, habits, your purpose, time, health, and mindset. So the words all
Mm.
have
It's a
sorry, the
mnemonic. It's a mnemonic.
yes, it is a mnemonic.
Say that to me again, so like, it registers this. Though I didn't expect that to come at me.
So relationships,
Yeah.
habits,
Yeah.
your purpose,
Ooh.
time,
Yeah.
health, and mindset. So my theory is that if we can get clear on what these different elements mean to us, we are much more likely to experience fun and fulfillment in life.
Of course, everyone's permutation of those be absolutely unique and different to everyone else's.
Yes, and that's why it says your purpose, not just purpose, because
Mm.
it's very unique to you. And the idea behind this book, it is a practical book. It's called Practical Tools and Ideas for Finding Balance, Harmony, and Fun. But I wanted this to be a book that people can actually implement. How many workshops and books and courses do we go on and make loads of notes and think, oh yeah, that's fantastic. We go home and the notebook goes on the shelf, or we forget about the ideas. I wanted this for I wanted this to be something that people could keep going back to and using. So there's at least one exercise per chapter. There's usually more than that in the book. There are also downloadable resources that people can access from my website. There's links in that as well. So I wanted this, so it is it's a bit of a workbook as well to some extent. There's lots of exercises for people to do as they're going along with this. So I
Kind of
really,
hybrid is it in terms of its design and multimedia? Gosh, all these words I
yeah,
don't.
yeah, sort of, yeah. So you could certainly write in the book, it's small, and any of the exercises that I've alluded to, you can download for free as well from my website.
So you try to make it, so far as a book can be interactive, you try to relate to people and give them not just a reading experience, but something which leads to actions.
Yeah, and sort of give examples of how it might be used as well, or examples from my own life. I share quite a bit of my own story in there, and some of the experiences I've had as well. And at the end, the idea is that I pulled it together and I've given three sort of different scenarios of how somebody might implement those things, those different elements in their life, in different situations and different stages of life as well. So I wanted people to see this isn't just theory. This is something that's highly implementable. And I think that's where I wanted it to be different. It's as far as I can, make it. It's easy reading. It is distinct chapters. I do like people to read it from start to finish because that's the way I do it. But you don't have to necessarily. You can go back to the separate chapters and do things on it as well. And there's a bit of an introduction to help you understand what to use in the book as well, or how to use the book. So, for example, you might not be able to see this, but in each chapter there's a core principle about what the aim of that chapter is as well, and the different it's labeled "do this" or "try this," where there's an actual activity for
So
people
it
to
has a
have.
kind of field book, if I can use that. Um, so I'm thinking back to the fifth discipline. Sengi brought out the fifth discipline. Everyone thought it's marvelous, and they thought, yeah, but can I use this? Then he brought out the field book, which was even bigger than the original.
Yeah, so
And
I
you,
did. I wanted this to be sort of a handbook for people because so I think the other thing is that sometimes people feel that, right, I've got this sussed, that's it, I've done. Life is not a tick box. I've done it. We go through changing circumstances, which then means our priorities change. So say, for example, somebody changes a job, or they change relationships, or they have kids, their priorities are going to be different. So it's no good thinking, oh, I'm just going to keep going the same way I've been going, because it's not going to work for me anymore. Different things.
so I'm only interrupting, as you know, because I forget what I'm going to say. I know you'll always remember where you got to. So is it aimed at anybody particular? Is it for people in anticipation of those changes, or is it for people who are constantly within them? Is there anyone it's particularly aimed at, or is it all humans?
All humans would definitely benefit from it, yes. But I suppose if you so I recommend, so if you've been through it once, I would recommend going through it again if your circumstances change. But I suppose this is aimed at people who feel stuck where they are. Perhaps they feel like they are constantly stressed, like they've never got enough time to do the things that they want to do, like they're always creating those tick boxes and checklists and never getting down the to-do list. This is for
Sure,
those people, or
sure.
perhaps it feels like everything's hard work. Like, why did this all happen to me? Why is it always this way? That's the sort of people that would benefit hugely from this book.
So people who've got everything sussed and they're right on top of everything, it's not for them.
Yeah, if you've got it all sus, fantastic. You share it with everybody else.
So you say there's a lot of you in there. How was that? Did that come easily? Was it difficult? Were you constantly editing, or I can't say that, and self-censoring? How did you go through the process of bringing yourself into the narrative?
um, a mixture of things. So it was interesting because somebody asked me this question at my book launch, actually, or a similar sort of question is around, obviously I do share a lot about myself. So did it make me think, am I doing everything that I talk about in the book? I think it's something
Sure.
along that lines. And it's like, oh, because as I was writing the book, I'm thinking, do I do this? It's all right, but where it's very easy to say something and say do this, but am I doing that? So it was interesting because I was sort of checking in with myself. Do I do this? And there were elements where I thought, actually, I have done this in the past, but I'm not doing it now. So this is a really good time to restart it. So I'm not perfect. And while I was writing the book, it was like, ooh, I'm saying this, but is it time I reviewed it myself as well? So, it does talk about real life experiences, and I can look back on things. I think this is where I wanted to share things with people. One of my biggest sort of beliefs in life is there's no such thing as failure, it's only feedback. And I can look at things that way now as well. I think it takes time to gradually get to that. And I can look at back with bemusement with certain things. So there's an example I give at the back in one of the scenarios where I went for an interview years ago and I completely cocked up big style. And I walked out the interview laughing, thinking, oh, well, never mind. Uh, it was an interesting experience, it wasn't it? And I thought, oh, it's too far to come to work anyway. And then when they phoned me up a week later offering me the job, it's like, wow, so I'm able to share these things. So I've been there and I've made a mess of things, and I've taken the reflection from things. And yeah, so I wanted to make it a real book, to explain that everybody can go through these things. And it happens to us all. I haven't got everything completely sorted. I'm still on that growth path as well. I just might be a bit further down from where you are at the minute. That's all with it. So I wanted to make it human. I
Or
didn't
not
want
as
it
far, or not as far,
yeah.
because you might be ahead of some readers in terms, but you might not be as far as others.
No, exactly. And in different areas of your life as well. You're ahead in some things and behind in other things.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting concept as well.
Is there any, I mean, I'm thinking about people in certain roles or occupations or professional activity. You've kind of given me the impression you feel that it's for anybody at all if they look for and find what there is to be found. So is it that broad, or do you think it does at all particularly have value for any group of people in any way, shape, or form?
It would be value to anybody. Now, obviously, I would say that, but there is a caveat to that to some degree. If this isn't for people who can't be bothered, you
Ah,
have to
right.
be you have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to put in the commitment. You have to be willing to do the exercises. Otherwise, there's no point because it's not going to change. Knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. It's one of my mentors, Peter Sage, and that's one of my go-to now. And especially over the last few years, because I was doing all these different things. I was one of those people who would go to a workshop, write loads of notes, think, wow, this is amazing. Then I'd get home and the notebook would go on the shelf, and I'd think, oh, I'll come back to that and I'll do that. And I didn't. And then I'd open up the notebook on the next workshop or the next course and think, oh, yeah, that was a really good course. Why didn't I do anything? So I've been there and I've done that. And, it'll help to a certain extent, but it doesn't change your life. And so this
So
is
the
for
people that would gain the most from rather than who wouldn't it before, it would be people who are self-aware, who are prepared to reflect honestly and accurately about themselves and that sort of thing.
yeah, you've got to be willing to reflect and look. You don't have to share this with anybody. That's the other thing is, but you need to be able to be honest with yourself. And it's about taking responsibility for your own development, for your own happiness. And if you're one of these people who always blames somebody else or something else for your lack of progress in life, then you could learn a lot from it, but I'm not sure that you'd be open to it.
So have you got more to say? Is there a rhythm too, or is the story told, or do you think there's anything to come from this?
Yeah, people have asked me that. I probably could create a workbook to go alongside it that's more practical. But I am so thank you for asking that as well, because I just got a date in my diary. So I'm
So
going to run
spontaneous.
I'm going to run a webinar on Thursday, the 24th of July, and this is for people to get a little bit more of a taste of what rhythm is about, sorry,
Mhm.
and some of the concepts behind it, so people can learn a little bit more and experience some of those, little exercises and have a taste of what it's like. Yeah, and ultimately, I do want to do so. I did run a pilot program last year, a live in per well, sorry, online, but live online course for a small group of people. And that was over a 6 month period where we took each of the concepts and we went through them. So I want to run that again. So now I've run that once and I've got the book. I'm ready to tweak that and roll that out again later in the year.
I detect a potential added value of come on this and get the book.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, plug the book. Where can the book be had from?
So you can find it on Amazon. Good old Amazon. Gosh, that was a learning experience in itself, getting it on Amazon, but I finally did. And it's available as a physical copy and a downloadable ebook. And you can also get it on my website. I would prefer you to get it on my website if I'm going to be completely open and honest with this, if you're in the UK, because I get a bigger cut of it if it's on my website. Amazon, not quite so.
Amazon's not free. I keep forgetting this. Yeah.
Yes.
So the usual question I ask you before we close down, because we always seem to have less time than we need. Is there anything else you'd have liked to say, but I just wasn't sensible enough to ask the right question?
I don't think so. Like I said, if you're stuck where you are, you want more but not sure how to get it, give it a read.
I think that's very concise and well put. You've rehearsed some of this by other events that I know you've done very well. So that's been most enlightening. And I have listed the one, two, three, four, five, the six elements, and they're interesting to say the least. Thank you very much.
Thank
Off we
you.
go.